What if the most violent thing you do to yourself every single day is completely invisible? What if the greatest tragedy of your life is not that you might fail to achieve greatness, but that you are utterly terrified of being perfectly, wonderfully average? Think about that tightness in your chest late at night. You are staring at a glowing screen in a dark room. You are endlessly scrolling past 22-year-old millionaires, prodigies, influencers. People living lives so saturated with artificial meaning that your own life feels like a hollow shell. A cold dread settles in your stomach. The fear that you are falling behind, the terror that you will die as a nobody. You have been infected with a modern plague, the crushing, suffocating burden of unfulfilled potential. You wake up every morning feeling like you are already in debt to your future self. You tell yourself that today is the day you will finally start the business, write the masterpiece, optimize your diet, become the person you were always destined to be. But the sun goes down and you are just tired. You are just a human being who wanted to eat a warm meal and rest. And because of that, you hate yourself. You stare at the ceiling, keeping a running tally of your failures. This is the lie. We have been brainwashed by a culture that demands exceptionalism as the bare minimum for self-respect. Look at the sheer exhaustion etched into the faces of the people on your morning commute. They are all chasing it. They are all terrified of fading into the background. We are obsessed with the idea of the main character. Every podcast, every self-help book, every motivational video screams at you to step into your greatness. They tell you that you are a sleeping giant. But what if you are not a giant? What if you are just a person? What if the desperate pursuit of this phantom greatness is exactly what is keeping you paralyzed, miserable, and profoundly disconnected from the actual life you are living right now? It failed. The promise of greatness has entirely failed us. Let us look at this through the piercing lens of depth psychology, specifically the work of Carl Jung. Jung taught us about the shadow, the hidden, repressed parts of our psyche. Usually we think of the shadow as our darkest impulses, our rage, our cruelty, our greed. But there is another kind of shadow, one that is silently destroying the modern mind. The grandiose shadow, when your conscious identity, your personas, built around being humble, working hard, and trying to be a normal, functioning adult, you often repress a massive, inflated, godlike narcissism into your shadow. Deep down in the dark, there is a part of you that believes you are a misunderstood genius, a secret king or queen living in exile. This hidden grandiosity is a tyrant. It sits in your unconscious and judges everything you do with ruthless contempt. It looks at your perfectly fine, average job and says, "This is beneath us." It looks at your quiet, average relationship and says, "We deserve a cinematic romance." It whispers that if you cannot be the absolute best in the world, there is no point in trying at all. This is why you procrastinate. This is why you are chronically bored. Your grandiose shadow refuses to let you participate in a normal, messy, imperfect human life because a normal life shatters the illusion of your hidden supremacy. Think about your own life. Notice how you would often rather do absolutely nothing and maintain the fantasy of infinite potential than do something small and face the reality of your actual limits. Perfectionism is not a virtue. Perfectionism is cowardice. It is the fragile ego protecting itself from the humiliation of being a beginner. When you finally confront this grandiose shadow, the experience is absolutely devastating. You have to mourn the death of the imaginary titan you thought you were going to be. You have to look in the mirror, strip away the delusions, and accept that you might just be a regular, ordinary person. And to the modern ego, this feels like death. But it is not death. It is the beginning of actual freedom. Now, turn your gaze to the East. Over 2,000 years ago, the ancient Taoist philosopher Chuang Tzu understood this sickness perfectly. He offered a solution that defies every single metric of modern success. He told a story about a master carpenter and a tree. The carpenter and his apprentice are walking through a dense forest when they come across an ancient, massive oak tree. It is sprawling, gnarled, and magnificent. Its branches stretch out for miles. But the master carpenter does not even pause. He walks right past it without a second glance. His apprentice is deeply confused. He asks the master why he did not stop to admire or cut down such a magnificent piece of timber. The carpenter replies coldly, "That tree is completely useless. Its branches are too twisted to make beams. Its trunk is too heavy to make boats. Its wood is too porous to make coffins. If you try to use it for anything at all, it will break. It is entirely useless." Here is the strange part. Chuang Tzu points out that because the tree was completely useless to the carpenter, because it could not be turned into a product, it was allowed to live for centuries. It grew to a massive size and provided shade for thousands of weary travelers. Its uselessness was its salvation. We live in a society entirely made up of carpenters. The market, the algorithm, the culture, they all look at you and demand to know what you are good for. How can you be monetized? How can your trauma be turned into content? How can your quiet hobbies be turned into a lucrative side hustle? If you allow yourself to be carved into a useful beam, you will be chopped down and consumed by the machine. You will become a very successful, very shiny, utterly dead piece of wood. The only way to survive the crushing violence of this modern utility matrix is to become the useless tree. You must deliberately and consciously embrace your own insignificance. I do not mean that you should stop paying your bills or stop caring for the people you love. I mean that you must cultivate a sanctuary within your own mind where you are completely, aggressively devoid of utility. You must learn to do things terribly. You must learn to do things that have zero return on investment. Paint a hideous picture and throw it in the trash. Walk for 3 hours in the wrong direction without a pedometer. Sit on a bench and stare at a pigeon for 40 minutes. Reclaim your sacred right to be entirely unproductive. Zen Buddhism expands on this liberation through the concept of Shoshin, which translates to the beginner's mind. A beginner's mind is empty, open, and utterly free of the agonizing pressure to be an expert. When a Zen monk washes the dishes, he just washes the dishes. He is not practicing mindfulness to optimize his blood pressure so he can work longer hours at a desk. He is washing the dishes to wash the dishes. The water is warm, the soap is slick, the ceramic plate is clean. That physical reality is the entire universe, in that exact moment. There is no greatness to be achieved at the kitchen sink, and because there is no greatness to be achieved, there is absolute peace. The moment you strip the expectation of greatness from your life, you realize that the ordinary is actually miraculous. So how do you actually dismantle this fear of being average? How do you practice purposeful insignificance in a world that demands you scream your name from the rooftops? First, you must recognize the neurosis of exceptionalism every single time it arises in your body. When you feel that familiar spike of panic because you are not doing enough, pause. Stop exactly where you are. Feel the physical sensation of that anxiety in your throat, in your chest, in the tension of your jaw. Acknowledge the grandiose shadow. Say to yourself out loud, "Ah, there is the tyrant. There is the ghost of my unfulfilled potential demanding a sacrifice." And then intentionally choose the ordinary. Refuse to feed the ghost. Do the most mundane thing you can think of, and do it with your full attention. Second, you have to completely redefine what psychological magnitude actually looks like. We are conditioned to think magnitude means millions of followers, a massive bank account, and a legacy that outlasts death. But look at human history. The legacies of emperors, kings, and conquerors are eventually reduced to dust and footnotes in books nobody reads. True psychological magnitude is completely invisible to the outside world. It is the quiet, unbreakable fortitude of a person who has accepted their exact, tiny place in the infinite cosmos. It is the ability to drink a simple glass of water and actually taste it, rather than gulping it down while panicking about the next 5 years of your career. The most profoundly individuated people, those who have truly integrated their light and their dark, do not run around screaming about their greatness. They blend in. They are entirely unremarkable from the outside, but inside, they possess a universe of profound depth. They do not need you to validate them, because they have stopped demanding that existence validate them. Third, you must stop weaponizing self-improvement against yourself. Notice how the modern self-help industry always promises to make you superhuman. It promises to give you the morning routine of a billionaire and the focus of a machine. It is just another form of the Carpenter's axe, trying to chop away your human flaws, your tiredness, your grief, to turn you into a more efficient product. But you are not a product. You are a biological organism. You are going to exist for a very brief, incredibly fragile window of time, and then you are going back into the earth. The desperate scramble to leave a mark, to prove that you were here and that you mattered, is nothing more than a symptom of a deep existential terror. Once you fully accept that you are average, that you are simply a single drop of water in an infinite, sprawling ocean, the crushing pressure evaporates. You no longer have to perform for an invisible, demanding audience. You can finally just live. You can love your family, do your quiet work, enjoy your slow mornings, and fade gently into the night when your time comes, without a single shred of regret. The fear of being ordinary is a psychological cage constructed by a sick society. The realization that you are already ordinary is the only key that opens the door. Put down the heavy burden of your potential. Step out of the cage. Become the useless tree. If you made it to the end, comment "I am the useless tree," and I will personally reply to you. And if this resonated with you, subscribe to be part of this and leave a like if you enjoyed it.